Welcome to the Product Design Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Coelen, founder of UX Cabin, where we create world-class web and mobile apps. I'm excited to bring you a behind-the-scenes look into the lives of some of the most interesting and talented people in product design. We'll get strategic advice on how they got to where they are today and things they wish they would have known earlier in their career.
Hey, welcome to this week's episode of the Product Design Podcast. Today we have Karsten Rowe with us. He is the Director of Product Design at Axon. It's a company that is focused on building high-performing product teams based in Seattle. We're going to be talking about a number of things, obviously Karsten's background, but also things like designing for public safety and the impacts of that. But without further ado, Karsten, thank you so much for being with us and appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure. Good to be here.
So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Karsten. So obviously you did the intros. Yeah, I'm currently at Axon designing hardware and software products. I think as a company, what we're known for is the taser and the body camera, I would say. They were basically our two biggest products. And we started about 30 years ago. Our CEO at the time, Rick Smith, had a very tragic incident. A couple of his friends got shot and killed. And he was just like, well, there's got to be a better way. So 30 years later, we have a suite of hardware and software, from things like dispatch software to comms products, to camera products, to drones, to in-car experiences. So there's a lot we do. I think the theme for our company is definitely like public safety, and that's like law enforcement, fire, medical, that kind of area. But we're also branching out into federal and things like that.
Wow, that's really, really interesting work. I'm sure there's a lot of UX that goes into that typical UX designers don't even think about. But, why don't we kind of start back at the beginning of your origin story and get an understanding for how you got into this field in the first place?
Yeah, let's do that. So I think as a kid, I was very lucky because it was very obvious what I should go and do with my life. I was just drawing a lot, and it started skating logos, just drawing all over my books. I wasn't great at school. I wasn't very academic. I wasn't that smart. I was really big into sport, and I was really big into art. And so I knew it had to be one of those two things. So we tried to do the soccer thing. That didn't work out. Tried to do the tennis thing. That didn't quite work out. So it always had to be art. So I went to art school, then went and did graphic design at university. And I was just, even before that, I think I was always just very particular. Things had to be tidy. Things had to be symmetrical. Things had to have a place. Even in my bedroom, the way I kind of collaged my wall in posters or whatever, it was just I was very intentional about layout and graphics, and color and art. So it was very easy for me to commit to what I wanted to go and do at university or college. Mum wasn't a huge fan of that decision. She was like, oh, you're going to go and be an artist. What does that mean? And I think combine that with being very lucky on the timing with the internet and that just blowing up, and computers just huge kind of advance in that kind of stuff. So I think I spent all my childhood savings on my first Mac. Again, I'm not very happy about that, but it turns out it's good in the end. And then I just fell in love with the Adobe products to start with, right? I think when you sketch everything on your books and everything's not quite perfect, but then you realize that a computer can make it perfect, and you can cheat a lot, right? You can undo and all those kind of things. So I think my love for art and then computers and technology made it very obvious, that this was the right thing for me. And so when I was at university, I did a couple of internships, which were very helpful in terms of helping me build out a catalog or a portfolio of work that was real work for real companies with real money on the line. I think that's way better than just having made up projects and that don't have any pressure or don't have a customer or a client to kind of go and please. So my last internship was in Germany. So I went over there for a few months. And while I was there, they helped me kind of polish my portfolio, apply for a bunch of jobs in London. I'm from a little town up north in England. And I went to my first interview and they offered me the job. I started 2 weeks later. I moved from this very small town in north of England, very rural and countryside, to London on my own 2 weeks later and started this job. And there was a lot of pressure. And I think at the time I said, oh, well, I'll just go for a year and see if I like it. And I was there for about nearly 10 years. worked at a bunch of different design agencies, initially in like branding, marketing, print, and then much more onto the web, taught myself some front end code, that kind of stuff. Kind of got more into products at that point rather than just graphics, I would say. And then I was posting a lot of work online on Dribbble mainly at the time. Dribbble was like a really big thing back then, I think. And American companies started to approach me, came to a couple of visits to America, did some contract work, and then they invited me to kind of join the team full time. So moved out here, spent a couple of years in San Francisco. Now I'm in Seattle. In recent years, I've spent most of my time on things like maps, telematics, safety, cameras, video, communications, if that's text-based or like voice comm. Those kind of areas I've kind of spent the last 5 years and moved away from the IC track to more of a manager track. And that just felt like the right time. I think I started my professional career when I was 21. I'm 37 now, so that's about over 15 years. And I think I just knew that I couldn't continue to be that prolific IC for another 15 years. I just didn't have the desire to do it. It wasn't because I didn't love what I do. It was just, I needed something else. And I feel like management and leadership kind of gave me that new thing to go and learn and go and train and go and get good at. And I missed some of the design stuff. Sure. I think you can always kind of get your creative stuff from side projects, and I still do a lot of that. But I think I'm glad I made the intentional decision to move into management and stretch myself in like a different way.
Very cool. Yeah. Lots of cool pieces to your story. I think, I always look out for the kind of the launch pad into what kind of propelled you. And it really sounds like those internships in school really were part of what helped give you a leg up to get your first bit of experience. Cause I think everyone will agree that you're getting your first job in tech or UX or product design is always going to be the hardest. So yeah, curious what you think was the impact of your internship when you got that, and maybe how long it would have taken you to get a job if you didn't have that internship or that opportunity.
Yeah, I think so I get invited to go to this interview for my first full-time role in London. It's terrifying, right? So you go down there on your own on a train, you got your little portfolio to like see how it goes. And I think what made me stand out is one, and this isn't like the right rule for everybody. Like there's so many things that are more important than this, but at the time, just being able to execute, be very prolific and proficient in software definitely helped me. My work looked professional. My work, one, because it was actually real work that a company was getting paid for, right? But two, it was like, it wasn't just these fake fictional projects. It was like, hey, there's a schedule. Hey, there's money. Hey, there's a customer. And therefore the projects were real. So it was a better story rather than, I did this university or college project and it was fictional. We kind of made up a brief. That's good. And it shows process and creativity and craft. Sure. But like, I think getting into the real world and understanding that we, as a design agency or as a designer, you have to make money, and understanding that was like, I think made me a better fit for that first role. And I think another thing about my portfolio is like, I did a lot of projects for friends and family. A lot of people do that, but again, it wasn't fake projects. My mum runs her own business. My little brother runs his own business. My older brother runs his own business. They all needed a brand. They all needed a website. They all needed SEO and stuff that we do online that I knew how to do. And it was fun because like I had complete creative control over it and I could do all the learning. So by the time I got to that first interview when I was 21, my portfolio was full of real stuff, real projects. And I think that's like hard to do, but I think it hits hard at the person interviewing you that you're kind of already making money in this industry.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's honestly very similar to how I got started because in college started building websites, kind of fell into it accidentally. And I think it was by far the biggest thing that helped me get my first job was simply because I had done a number of websites and showed competency that I could not only, do the design and the code that I was applying, for the job, but I could also manage the project. I could also, bring value to these small businesses. And I think for anyone out there who's like, thinking about what you could do, who could trust me to build a website, and like, there's a huge market out there for like small businesses that they're not going to pay an agency or a really high paying freelancer to do it, but they, could spend maybe $500 to $2,000 on something, or, maybe a little less. Maybe you do it pro bono for the first one, but it's just like providing that real value. You're going to learn so much. You're going to have to look up so many things on YouTube and online and cut your teeth and, get into it. But what that does is it, like you said, it gives you that first of all, that taste of like, hey, this is actually real things. Also gives you stuff to put in your portfolio, things that you want to do to make the client happy, to make sure that this is going to present well for you when you, try to take it to the next level. And
yep.
I honestly don't think there's anything better that you can do when you're first starting out. Because if I had gone to my first job and it said, hey, I've got this degree, hire me. If I had the right connections, if I had the right introduction, maybe. But if I have a portfolio of actual projects, I can take it to someone. They don't have to know me from anyone, and they can, evaluate the work, and that kind of gets your foot in the door.
Exactly that. And I think the biggest thing that sometimes I don't see in students, I still do like a lot of stuff with like UW and their career fair and stuff like that, which is kind of fun. But it's like a lot of the time the designers have the craft, they have the process, they understand how to design something. They just probably don't understand the business side of it as well, right? And so as a designer, I think if you are going to go really far in your career, you've got to obviously nail the actual nuts and bolts of craft process, but understanding how a business runs, understanding how we make money. Like, it's not so applicable to product design roles, but if you're going to go work for a design agency or something like that, you have to go and estimate the work. You have to understand what your work, how much time you can spend on this and still make money. You're going to have to you're going to have to write good emails. You're going to have to inspire people, get buy-in. You're going to have to go and stand there, present it in front of people. If you can't sell yourself and the work, you're always going to fall a little bit short. And it's like, in the nicest way possible, I always talk about like everybody is a salesperson, and you're selling, you sell, you're selling, you work, you're selling the company that you work. And if you can't make that potential customer or customer happy and confident that you can deliver in this schedule within that budget, even if the work's great, they're still not going to buy into it.
Absolutely. Everyone wants to know when they're hiring is this person going to make me look foolish down the road? Like, can I expose this person to clients? Can I trust them to, take this to the finish line and not just 80% in your storytelling, in your portfolio? Can you help bridge that gap to say like, yes, I'm the perfect person to help take this to the finish line, or to help fill in the gaps of where you need. And like you said, everyone's a salesperson, if nothing else, just for yourself and for your own career. And so you got to learn how to build in storytelling. You have to learn how to take someone through a journey of what you did, how you took it from before you to after you, and what the positive impact of that was, even if it's just qualitative, Yeah. We'd obviously love to measure everything in quantitative metrics, but sometimes for design and UX, it's more qualitative, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, looking back over your career, what were some of the things that you feel like you did really well, and think some of the things that you wish you would have done differently or you made mistakes on?
Yeah. I like this question. A student asked me this the other week, and I think like it's pretty simple in terms of what I did well. I'm very reliable. I like deadlines. I work really hard, right? And there's a balance, like everybody's threshold for work ethic and what's right for them, what makes them happy. I just loved what I was doing. So I didn't mind working hard, especially in my 20s. Like when I was in London, that was just like, I went to London on my own to go and pursue this career. Like I didn't know that many people when I arrived, right? So it was kind of like, that was like, I was very focused on making that a success. So I think hard work is something that you just have to do, especially early on, to get you break and kind of earn some kind of respect. I think that's what you have to do. And then I think being nice to people is important. You want to be human. I think that's kind of definitely like an underrated thing.
Yes.
And I think what's overrated is natural talent. And I get this a lot. Oh, like, well, you were just really good at art, or you're just really good at presentations. And I'm like, well, no, it's just because I did a lot of it. Right. Because I was in you. I just did a lot of it. And I think that's why, like, I always tell people, we'll take every opportunity that makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, go and do that. And I think I always use the, not analogy, but look at people in sport, if it's like Ronaldo or whoever in soccer, or Federer in tennis, or Ronnie O'Sullivan in snooker, whoever it is, they're like, oh, they're just naturally talented. And I was just like, there's probably a small piece of that, but they probably spent just more time and trained super hard and practiced so much. And so talent's overrated, practice is underrated. And I say that on a weekly basis. And I really, truly believe that. So I think that's what I did kind of well.
Yeah. I think just to jump in and kind of riff off some of those things, I think you're 100% right. And I think, like, obviously there's things in, in sports or different fields where it's like natural talent can be obvious sometimes, right? So it's like, no matter how much I practice basketball, I'm never going to be able to get to the NBA. But if we're talking about something like research or product design, like, the ceiling's a little bit lower than like you can effectively get into the top 10, 5, 1% by putting in the hard work and by outworking everyone else in a matter of years, right? And it's achievable. That ceiling is, within reach just by putting in the time. And I'm sure many are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, where he basically talks about this. If you look at the percentage of professional hockey players, like some crazy high percentage of them were born in January, February, and March, because the cutoff time for hockey leagues is the new year. So if you were over that age gap and you had more months to practice and get into the travel leagues when that cutoff was, you automatically had way more games that you played just by virtue of you being born at an earlier time. So I think even something that's like as physical as hockey, it points to like however fast you can get to your 10,000 hours of mastery, like, do that and just blow out the competition by quantity of work.
Yeah. And like, just don't be so precious about it. Like some of the work I used to create is bad. I'm glad I look back at it. It would be weird if I thought it was great now, right? But it's just like, it doesn't mean just not the customer work, but I'm just talking about like dribble or just creating stuff. Just do a lot of it. And then like you look back every year and be like, oh, I would do that so much better now. I do that. So like, I haven't posted to dribble in years, but at the time I was near enough doing daily shots and just posting work online. And eventually you just get comfortable with it. And it's not you lower your bar of quality, you just respect what a work of progress is. And I always talk about perfect at the moment. And it's like, perfect is the highest quality you can get to in the time allowed. Like there is like everything should be.
Love that.
Like piece of work, right? It's not, a client isn't going to, or a customer isn't going to say, oh, go and spend 10 years and make this perfect. They're going to say, here's your budget. And you have to, within that budget, what's the highest quality you can get in that budget? And that is what perfect is to me.
Love that.
And it be better. So I think a lot of designers are scared to share, and they'll spend 6 months writing a case study for their portfolio and stuff like that. And I think that's good. But I'm saying ship something and then refine it and make it better as you've got time. And just the idea of actually posting something to the internet puts you under the pressure to go and improve it. Where if you just have it in draft mode on WordPress or whatever CMS you're using, and you're just like, oh, well, like one day it'll be perfect and then I'll hit publish. It's just like,
Yes. That's so great. It's like, with the basketball, the dribble metaphor, it's like, you don't go to a park and just think about the whole time you're there about shooting the perfect shot. Like, no, you go there and you hack up a bunch of shots until you feel like you start to get good at it. Right.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, there's probably lots of people watching you that are like, wow, this guy's bad at basketball. But if you do that every day for a year, that person that, you know, at the end of the year is going to be like, wow, this person got a lot better. Like, just shoot your shot. You got to go for it. You gotta put some stuff up there and realize that there's going to be criticism, but there also might be some eyeballs on there, some scouts out there that might say like, hey, come play for our league. You know, this is familiar to what we're trying to do at our company. Come do this for us.
Yeah. And I think I have that kind of same mindset with so many things that I do. I think people really struggle like, oh, like I want to be perceived or seen to be good, but you've got to go and earn that. Right.
Yeah.
So if it's like making music, right? I am not precious about, I'm not like going to try and make this perfect track or perfect mix and then post it. I've only been making music for about a year and a half. I'm bad at it. So let me just accept and own that I'm not good at it. But it means I'm going to post to SoundCloud every other week with something new. Not because I'm just showing everybody I'm good at this, just the art of practicing and like using that as like momentum to kind of get better and like listening to the progress over time. And I think that's the best way to get good is just do a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing you mentioned about kindness is underrated, and people probably hear that and roll their eyes, but like, I can't tell you how small of a world the industry is, right?
Mm-hmm.
In UX and product and how connected things are. What I'm not saying in here is be treated like a doormat. What I am saying is be easy to work with, right? Like be the person that people come to and they want to give, you know, the next project to because you're so fun and easy to work with and you're kind. Be the person where if you leave the company or whatever, you're still able to get a referral or the people that you worked with can still vouch for you. And it's kind of like that character in the back of your mind who's saying like, just watch out for your future self and be good to these people while you are crossing paths with them right now.
And it does come round. It takes a long time for it to come round. But just to go back to your point, like kindness doesn't mean you're soft.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't be respected.
Right.
It just means that you're a human and you can like always try and give more than you're taking and help others. I think, we were trying to, your original question was like, oh, what did you do well and less well? I think the things what I wish I learned when I was 21, it was just like, I was ultra competitive. I was so competitive. And I remember being first role as junior designer, right? And there's other designers around me. And all I wanted to do was show my boss I was the best designer in that team. I was going to outwork, I was going to be more efficient, I was going to be more profitable. And it wasn't because I was actively shooting other people down. I wasn't like mean or like had bad intentions for other people. It was more that I didn't understand that my role or the best designers do great work, but they also like help others do great work.
Yes.
And I was too slow to learn that like, you can be this brilliant loner, but you can't really achieve that much in life if you're just one single person. And to be somebody who really adds massive amount of value to any team or any business is like, you have to pull people along with you and you've got to help them like increase the bar of what the output of the whole team is, not just show everybody you're the best designer.
Yes.
That was like, I wish I learned that a couple of years earlier than I did. And again, I was never like mean to people. I don't mean that. I didn't spend enough time helping other people.
I think that's fascinating because you think of how our schools and basically society is set up, and it's basically set up with, competition over collaboration as being kind of like the forefront of, like goals and outlook, right? So it's like let's get the ranking of who got the highest grade in the class. Let's see who did the best on this. And you're always thinking in terms of competition, but then when you get into the workforce, it really shifts for a large majority of your situations where it's going to be more about collaboration than collaboration and cooperation rather than competition. Certainly that can give you an edge and that can help you, but like most of your work is going to be like, did I help bring the team along? Did I help, kind of set things up well for people so that the whole team could flourish rather than me just looking like the superstar.
Yeah. I think like one of the reasons I transitioned into management is because I learned a couple of these things. I'm still very competitive, kind of. It's me against me. It's not me against anything else. Where I was kind of like, I wasn't that great at that earlier on in my career. So it's like, and then you really grow to enjoy helping other people, and just you only care about the output of the team and how do I hire and mentor and coach this team to be great. So now I look around and last few teams I've managed, I just really like that everybody on the team is a better designer or better in some way than I am. And my younger self would have not been able to deal with that. I wouldn't have been happy about that. But now it's great. Do you know what I mean? It's great. And I think me as a human being has changed, but also my role has changed so much that it would be very silly for me to always think I had the right answer, right? I'm there to provide feedback and opinion and offer help and based on the experiences that I've had, but I'm often not always right.
Yep.
I'm asking questions to like get justification for a design decision or make sure somebody thought something through. And I'm always like happy to concede or just, I actually really, in a weird way, I really like being wrong because it means that I've learned something, or it means that the other persons have managed to influence what my opinion is. And that's very hard, the intelligent, smart thing to be able to do. So yeah, it's a complete change in terms of how I look at work and teams and what value I add.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've also noticed that in like building design teams, in healthy teams, it kind of works itself out where each person kind of has a unique thing that they're really good at, whether it's prototyping or whether it's, kind of helping project manage it, or maybe it's animations or, whatever the case may be. I think there's totally room for you to look at your team, look at your skill set and be like, what's the thing that I'm really good at that I can own, that I can, not be the best at everything, but it's like, given all the skill sets, where can I plug in as kind of like the shining star of X on this project or this team?
I agree with that. And I think a lot of people in every industry, and especially the tech world, talk about diversity, right? And I think that as an industry, we're moving in the right direction, but there's still such a long way to go. And I'm such a big believer in diversity because if you have all the same type of skills, same type of background with the same experience, coming from the same school, the same age, the same sex, the same kind of political views, whatever the thing is, you're all kind of groomed and conditioned to come up with the same stuff. Right? The best design team, you've got this designer who's like super punctual, professional, documents everything, asks all the right clarifying questions, like just very precise. That's what their nature is as human being. And then you have this very creative, collaborative, enthusiastic designer over here. And you put those two together and then like, that's like a brilliant team where if everybody comes with the same opinions from the same background,
right?
You don't have, I think, the right ingredients to create the right team. So I look at like pairing people together.
Same.
And if that's a PM or a designer or a researcher or an engineer, whoever it is, I'm always looking at like what the chemistry is like, not the right word, but are they complementary?
Right.
In terms of where they're weak and where they're strong.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge thing for a manager to be able to do, is to pair skills and strengths and weaknesses together for a given project. And I think if you on your team are starting to think about the chemistry and the makeup of the team, who's good at what things you see on the horizon, what red flags you might see, like you might be a good manager, in now or in the future, right? If you're thinking about those things. But yeah, curious to, kind of know when that switch kind of happened for you from being an individual contributor to a manager, and what have some of the trade-offs been for you?
Yeah, I got a couple of like things that I would say on that. I was like, think about it. It's not right for everybody. The industry's changed. You don't have to be a manager to earn really good money. And that's a great thing, right? Then go train for it. meaning you used to read like this Figma thing and this YouTube channel, whatever, go do some real training. If that's internal, external, anything you can go and do to get a taste for it. And because the first time you manage it, you're like, well, what am I doing? Like, all I want to do is like go and solve this design problem or whatever. And you feel like a bit of a fake, or you don't really know where you're adding value. And I think going to do some formal training gives you that confidence of what you're supposed to be doing. But it's not right for everybody. I think one thing I would say in any decision is I lean on taking a risk, right? If that was going to London on my own, if that's coming to America on my own, whatever it is, I'm like, I might not get this opportunity again. I've got to go and try it. But when I go and say I'm going to go and try it, I'm going to go and like put my toes in and see what it feels like. I can always come back. So you can go and try and like see what a manager's like, if that's training or having one direct report or whatever that might be. But it's okay to say, this isn't really for me.
Totally.
Some people don't know. Some people think they want to do it and then they don't actually like it. Because as a manager, you've got to do a lot of sucky things, to be honest. There's loads of not nice things that you have to do as a manager. There's loads of lovely things too. But lots of paperwork, you're kind of removed from the craft. Your skills get a little bit blunt once you start managing like quite a few people, especially managers. Like you're not actually, you're still collaborating, you're still reviewing work, but how much time do I actually spend per week? Very minimal, right? So I think, and then there's like performance reviews, and there's just a lot of like, there's a lot of paperwork that feels like a bit of a drag, but it's one, I like building teams and the business side of it and stuff like that. I've always been into business as well. Like that kind of helps. So I don't know. It's definitely not for everybody. And there is some really dry, hard things that you have to do, but your focus is on like, is the team progressing, or how's the team performing on a whole? And as long as you keep that in the forefront of your mind, that's the goal. You just have to like suck it up sometimes and do some of the boring tasks.
Yeah. Do you think that in order for someone to be a good manager, they have to be a good leader? Or do you think those are two separate things?
Oh, it's all just like everyone's unique. Like everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Like somebody can be a very like caring, good people manager, but maybe less inspiring or influential. They maybe just don't have the background or personality that really gets somebody like fired up. A lot of people are great at managing people, managing down, but not so good at managing up. Because they just maybe aren't well positioned to like speak on their level or understand what maybe those execs or VPs expect from you.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I see strengths and weaknesses across the board for sure of the other design managers I've worked under or with or alongside. So I don't think it's like one size fits all. I think as an IC or a manager, you're always going to have your superpower and you're always going to have your areas of development opportunities that you kind of want to develop for sure. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that one.
Yeah. I could maybe be convinced otherwise, but I kind of think you do. I kind of think they, or at least they overlap a lot because, you know, when you're managing people, you don't want you don't want to have to pull rank to get things done. You want to be able to inspire and build people along, and they have the trust that your input, your advice is going to get it to the finish line. And I think there has to be a level of good leadership that people trust other than just pulling rank. So I'm trying to think of like an example of someone who's like a non-traditional, like not leader type, but is a good manager. And there very well might be. I'm just, kind of shooting from the hip here in what I'm thinking off the top of my head.
I think that makes sense. I don't know if I agree. I would say like, I think you could be a good people manager, maybe not the best people manager without necessarily like some of those leadership skills.
Yep.
But it depends how far you want to go.
Yep.
I think just to kind of pivot a little bit, you asked one of the things that I did well in my career. Another thing that I don't see in other people that I definitely did was having goals, meaning writing down your goals, being very precise, what industry, what team size, what type of work, what sort of pay, what sort of type, like write them down, share them with family or friends, and then you're accountable for them. And then I always talk about this. I've got my Google Doc. I think I started in 2010. So I've got I write goals down, New Year's resolutions every year. They're only short, right? So there's one career goal, there's one health goal, and there's one happiness and hobby goal. And I share that doc every time with family and friends, so they know where I want to get to. So I know where I want to get to when I'm 40. I know where I want to get to when I'm 45. I knew when I was 21, what do I want to achieve by that point, by 25, by 30. And it's kind of fun to look on that. And then you ask yourself, what did I do today, this week, this year to kind of get you closer to that goal?
That's cool.
So I think just that as a mechanism for me is always helped me understand which direction I wanted to go. And sometimes I wasn't sure, but I wrote something down, and sometimes I got there and I didn't like it. And that's okay too.
Yeah. How do you come up with goals that you want to pursue? Like, I'm just thinking of, things back in probably 15 years ago when you started to write some of these things down. Some of the titles that we hold today didn't even exist back then, right? So it's trying to think into the future. How do you make the goal that is, but I guess partially realistic and partially ambitious that makes it a good goal?
Yeah. So I think you don't think you can't tweak or change the goal. And obviously titles change all the time. And it's so I really understand that bit. I don't know. I think that's why I'm lucky compared to other people is, I don't know what I want to be or what I want to do, and that just makes them sit there and not make a decision. And therefore they can't move as quickly, where I've been very lucky with I always wanted to be a designer, always wanted to be Johnny Ives. That's what I wanted to be. Right. So it was very clear. I just want to become this human over here. So it was very easy to be. But I also think mentally I told myself that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know, but I told myself that I did know. So it was kind of kidding myself. And I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? At that time, I had no idea what it would be like to work in San Francisco at a big tech company. I had no idea. I might have hated it. I told myself that's what I wanted to go and do. And it might have been wrong, right? But I committed. I think if you don't commit, you sit in the middle, you're not going left, you're not going right, and therefore you can't move very quickly.
Yeah.
Where you commit to something, even if you're not sure it's right, you can travel very quickly to that thing. And then you get there and you decide, was that a good decision? Where do I go now?
Yeah.
So I think, committing to something when you're unsure, I think I'm probably good at that.
Yeah.
Because I see that holding a lot of people back.
That's good. Yeah. That's really interesting. So, you've been in the game for a while. You look back on your career and, see any specific highs or lows that you went through, whether it was, staying too long at a, poorly managed company or getting a super lucky break to work with some amazing minds, or anything you look back and say, here's some signposts I wish I would have paid more attention to, or things I didn't know how good I had it when I had it there?
Yeah, I would say there was a couple of things. There was a move when I was in London to another company pretty early on in my career, and I took it for the money. And I just wasn't excited about the work so much. I wasn't just going the money. I wasn't excited by the work. I didn't have a great relationship with my manager. Where I do my best work and best growth, it's always under a manager that I really admire.
Yeah.
I really want to become. And I didn't really have that either. And so I always look back, that was a bad career move.
Sure.
For sure. I would say I stayed in London for a little bit too long. There was visa issues and stuff like that to get out of the States. I should have probably moved a little bit quicker. And then another mistake, not naming any companies or names, but I probably stayed in one job maybe 6 months, a year too long. It was too safe. It was too comfortable. And again, when you're in the deep end, you do all your biggest and best learning, and your progression is a lot quicker when you don't know what you're doing and you're scared and you have to really perform. So yeah, comfort is fine. And sometimes you just need a bit of stability, and that's fine too. But I think I always want to be in a role which is like super challenging, because that's how you grow. And then you get to a point where it's still challenging, but you still feel like capable and comfortable.
Yeah.
I would encourage people to like go and take a job that you're unsure that you can deliver at that level or in that industry or that space. I think that's what you should be doing, especially in your 20s. And in your 20s, don't worry about earning lots of money. Like, you're supposed to be broke in your 20s.
Right. No, I think it's really good. It's also fun to look back and just, look back with 2020 vision on your career. Cause like this sounds weird, right? But like, I got lucky in that the first job I got was pretty low paying. And the reason I got lucky is because that made going to my next company really pretty easy with, a small incremental salary raise. But really what that move did is I was handed basically, it went to a little smaller company, but I was handed basically the keys to the kingdom as far as design goes. And I got to jump into the deep end and really figure things out. And had it been a lateral move, or had it been, less money than if I had asked for more at my first job and gotten it, I wouldn't probably have made that move. And I would have been stuck in this place where I, wasn't learning as much as I could have. I wasn't doing hard, challenging work, but it's just oh, that's interesting. Taking a job that paid me less actually probably really impacted my career trajectory in a really positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the most important thing for sure. I can definitely relate to that. I think another thing that has helped me, or I think understanding what a startup life is like, and understanding what a slightly bigger or more mature company is like, and understanding the pros and cons of both, right? I think if you only work for the really big companies, or only work for all the small companies, I don't think you have a full idea of the pros and cons. And I think obviously on the startup side, you have loads of creative control. You're expected to do loads of things. You're wearing all the different hats. If that's answering support calls, to writing code, to doing design, to generating new business, whatever it is, you get kind of involved in it. Where a bigger company, I've seen designers maybe sit back a little bit. They've brought this perfectly well-defined spec with all the requirements in it, and they're just executing on that specific thing. And they don't understand how the whole business is running, or what this team over here is even doing. And that's okay too. I just think looking at, I think as a designer, I would encourage people to go and try different industries, different company sizes, different locations. And then you'll get a right feel of where you want to fit in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think if, you can kind of get a taste for a lot of those different things in the agency model, because you will work with startups, large corporations, get a little bit of a taste of what working with that company on a day-to-day basis might be. But I think that's really good advice, is to, don't misinterpret your position and skill set required for your position solely based on where you're at. Maybe you hate being a front-end developer and you think you need to change careers, but maybe it's just you hate where you're working. Maybe it'd be a really good environment somewhere else. And there's tons of flavors out there, from startup to lifestyle business to agency to large corporation that are all, have their trade-offs for sure.
Yeah, and it'll never be perfect. It's always greener on the other side. But if you aren't happy in your work, you're never going to be great, because you're not going to level of commitment or enjoyment or satisfaction.
Right.
And I think those things are key for you to be great. You can be good, you can deliver.
Yeah.
But be great. I think you have to be happy and satisfied with what you're putting out in the world, or quality of the work, or the level of experience, or the learnings that you're taking home with you every day. I think that's really important.
Yeah. So speaking about being happy at work, you have been in kind of the public safety design sector for a while now. Tell us a little bit about why this sector and what's unique about it, what makes you tick. about working on these sort of products?
Yeah, I think this is an easy one for me. So I've been around for a bit, designed lots of good products, lots of okay products and some bad products. But I think as soon as I started speaking to Axon, I knew I had to go and join the team. It was like, nobody's asking for another Instagram or Ruffle or TikTok or whatever. Like, they're all great products, right? And they've got beautiful UI and like loads of cool, like next level, like gesture, loads of awesome stuff. But nobody really needs another one of them. So at Axon, we're like building products that I think do make a difference. And it sounds very lofty, but it's true, like do save lives. And I think for me, when we talk about motivation, if I love Snapchat too, sure. But me going to go and work on Snapchat in my career, I wouldn't have the motivation to do my best work because it's just cute. It's just nice. And I'm not saying anybody at Snapchat, good for you. Like, it's probably a great company to work at and I love the product. I'm just, for me, I don't have the motivation to go and build that anymore.
Yep.
I need to go and build something that is mission driven, makes a difference. And that's why it was easy. So just to kind of double click into that, it's the two products that I'm working on at the moment, let's talk about dispatch first. So when somebody calls 911, what happens, right? So there's the reporting part, they speak to a call taker, they create a call, they dispatch a unit or a vehicle or an officer to the event. There's the in-car experience. Hopefully the event is de-escalated and then the event kind of gets all wrapped up and report writing happens, right? That's the general like workflow or life cycle of an event. So when you look at that and you look at that at scale, like if you can save this many seconds per call across millions of calls, you're actually saving lives as a designer. And it does sound silly, but I honestly, truly believe it. And I think with all the unrest that we had and Black Lives Matter movement and defund the police, it was a super controversial space, right? And as a white male, like, you think, is this even right for me? This seems like a really like, one, interesting, but two, controversial. It was so heated. Like those moments a few years ago it's still heated today. But if you believe in your own integrity and what you are as a human being and know that your opinion sits somewhere in the middle and you have an opportunity to influence what some of the products and decisions are actually putting out in the world, I think that's very empowering.
Yep.
So I think that's why I'm really interested in the space, but also like I'm into maps, I'm into cameras, I'm into comms, I'm into safety.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of aspects of the products or features or functionality of the products that we do at Axon that I already had experience with. So it felt like a good fit in terms of my experience of building in those kind of areas, but also like the mission itself.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I think another thing that is really relevant in this industry is that it's like a really, really underserved industry, right? So it's like you take any public service, and the interfaces they have to deal with, the dashboards they have to deal with, the UI that they have to work within is the bar is really low. So
yeah,
there's huge.
I don't know, like I agree from like maybe a UX perspective, completely agree. A lot of the systems are old, unintuitive and ugly. But on the other side of it, a lot of these products have so much functionality. It's ridiculous. Right. So to get feature parity with one of our competitors is difficult.
Right.
And then the focus on reliability and stability. So I always talk about this example. When Facebook doesn't work for an hour, everyone's like, oh, good. No, Facebook. If you're this, so breaks will actually die. And so it's like, you say that they're bad products, but their uptime, reliability, and stability, as well as like latency and stuff like that, those kind of elements of building great products they're actually really good at.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair. But yeah, more so just speaking from a UX perspective, it's like, if you wanted to come in and make the next Snapchat, it's like, okay, you need to, come up with like the most novel gesture and social interaction known to man, plus 100 million in funding and a bunch of good connections. When it's like, you take a good UX designer, you're like, hey, look at this dashboard UI that, that's coming through to this paramedic or, hospital or police officer. It's like, oh yeah, I would change these 3 things. I would update this. I would reorder this. And you're like, boom, like immediate impact, immediate change, immediate improvement upon like something that, billions of people use every day for specifically like saving lives.
No. I kind of definitely didn't want to shoot you down by saying that you were wrong. What I was trying to get to is like, we measure maybe UX and success in a different way.
Yes.
So yes, lots of the UI stuff. I was so picky and like all the alignment issues, all the layout issues, all the data density issues, whatever the interaction is, or like whatever, like all those things that frustrate me. A lot of the time people say like cops hate the way they think that the things currently work, but they also hate change. Don't get a lot of training. And therefore like, they're not always familiar with like, for me and you use computers every day. That's not their world. So what we find intuitive and other conventions of consumer grade products would not work in for like within public safety, or they're slower to adopt, and you've got to be aware of that. It's not like you don't push change or for change. It's you need to be aware that they've moved, if the adoption is slower, and you've got to kind of do that hand holding incremental change thing. I think that's one thing. And I think the other thing is like, do I invest my resource or budget or time in an overhaul of this UI or UX to make it more modern and sexy and slick? Or do I invest this resource to reduce the amount of time it takes to get through this workflow, or reduce the number of errors? Because like we always talk about speed being king and efficiency. So if that's key presses, if that's like, if they're looking at mobile screens, if that's like referencing like different windows, different screens, or how do we like save preferences? How do we get their login to be super quick so they can get up and running in their car very quickly? All of those kind of things. So I really measure a lot of the design I do now about efficiency. I love all the UI stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm very particular about that too, but it's like, I can be okay that some of the rough edges, we made the decision of what's best use of our budget to make this thing better. And if that's like, oh, well, that's misaligned by 10 pixels, or we reduced that workflow by 2 seconds, I'm going to take the 2 seconds.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that's like, when you consider redesign versus incremental improvements, is everyone wants to do the redesign because it's fun to rethink it from the ground up. But it's like, there's so many things that you don't take into account when rebuilding. So it's just like you were saying, the stability of the feature, the bugs that have worked themselves out, all of those things that are, kind of leaning towards like, hey, incremental improvement. Because if we redesign this, it's going to take 6 months. And then when we launch it, or even if we incrementally launch it, we're going to have to deal with all of these random weird bugs that happen when you push F12 and E together that you didn't know on this certain browser that did this thing. That, it's those things have kind of like taken care of themselves and built themselves out in the existing product. It's like, if it's salvageable, if it's something that you can over time kind of log that design debt, it's a very hard case to say we should rebuild this foundational piece of software that, is used in these critical moments.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a lot of these, another reason I like working public safety, a lot of these products are very like complex and they're hard problems to solve. And there's so many problems to solve. So there's never like a shortage of like a really hard thing that I have to go and think deeply about. And as you were saying, a redesign compared to incremental change, like every time, say a medic has to go and get trained on the software, they're not out serving the community. So a department or an agency is very nervous about taking those kind of frontline workers off the front line to go and sit in a room, do software training. That's not what they want. So when you make a big overhaul or a big change, it's very disruptive and costly for them. And that's why like we just approach product building a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's super insightful. if you were to give advice to anyone listening who kind of wanted to follow in a similar career path, maybe it's getting started into product design, or maybe it's even more specifically into the field of UX and product safety, what would be your advice for how to get started, maybe how to land that first job and get, kind of follow in your footsteps?
Mm-hmm. I'll do the easy answer to begin with, and it's a poor answer, but I honestly think it's real. It's a numbers game. So I have friends. I do this career conference thing at UW, generally try and help people earlier on in their career, if that's just doing a call or reviewing a resume or helping them with a portfolio thing or just critiquing some of the work, whatever they need to help them a little bit. I do a lot of that as much as I can when I'm asked to. But when I ask people, what kind of job? And they say, I might want to be a researcher. I might want to be a product designer. I might want to be this graphics person or art director or something. Just try and be specific about what you actually want. Most of the time, I'm not looking for a hybrid. As a hiring manager, I'm often trying to fill a specific skill set. To try and make that decision for yourself, make sure that your portfolio resume reflect that specific role. What job title is it? Is it product designer or is it research? The two different things. You can do both roles, and every designer will do some research, right? Sure. But it's a lot of the time as a hiring manager, you have that specific title and you want that person to map to that title. Number two, when I ask people, well, how many jobs have you applied for? And they say, I'm working on my portfolio, right? And then they're spend so long trying to make the portfolio. Make your portfolio as great as possible, but do it incrementally. And then, how many jobs have you applied for? They're like, I've done really well. I applied for 10 jobs this week. I'm like, why not 100? And so I think I'd like people, it's a savage world, but when you're just starting out, you're going to have to apply for hundreds of jobs to get that break. And I think that's the thing that you have to do. As you get deeper into your career, it's less of a numbers game because you have your network, you've been nice to people, people that can go and approach, and people will approach you, right? Most of the time, for running your career, you don't often apply for jobs. It's an opportunity that somehow comes up, or somebody emails you about, or an ex-colleague is going to go and do this. They want you to come with whatever the thing is. And then all of the time, it's picking where you want to go.
Yep.
And that's when you're in a really good place, is when you actually get to go and decide what your next job is. You're not just going to take anything. But when you're really starting out, don't be precious. Apply for a lot of jobs. I disregarded location a lot because I was excited and happy to move lots of different places. So if that was London, if that was Germany, if that was coming to the States, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I didn't plan to come to Seattle, but it just made sense at the right time. And I really like living here now. So I didn't plan it necessarily. It was just Axon was the right job for me at that moment. In my mind, there's more of a risk of saying no and never getting that opportunity again than saying yes, going and not liking it and then coming back. I totally the way I look at it. And other people are like, well, I've lived in San Francisco all my life. Why would I move to Seattle? I don't know. Some people don't want to do that stuff. It's easy. So I would say those kind of few things. In terms of getting into public safety, I look at this in portfolios a little bit. I definitely think there's a type of person, a general type of person that works at Axon, where when I'm looking at portfolio, then I might see, they've designed this for some environmental product or health product, or I don't know, something else that we would put under the bucket of or label of design for good. I think there's a lot of those types of people at Axon. If you want to try and build products that make the world a better place in some way, I think public safety or Axon would be the right fit for you. That's what motivates you. When I was younger, that wasn't necessarily what I was focused on. I was just on slickness, front end, all the new CSS stuff. That's what I was really excited about. I was excited about all the details, where today that's not really what is my number one thing anymore. So I think if you're that type of person, I think it would be a very motivating place to work.
Very cool. Well, Karsten, this has been a fantastic talk. I think you've shared so many pieces of insight and wisdom that we'll package up here in this episode, and I'm sure it will help other people. But really just wanted to thank you for coming on and give you the last word before we head off for today.
Likewise, really enjoyed our conversation, Seth. Thanks so much for your time. Hopefully we can do it again further down the line. But yeah, thanks again, Seth. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today on the Product Design Podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation, be sure and go follow our guests. Let them know they did a great job and you learned a lot. More to come in the following weeks as we bring on new guests. Please hit that subscribe button so that you will get these podcasts and learn a ton about the product design community. Excited to see you next time. Thanks.